How did the voice of a generation fall silent so suddenly? Kurt Cobain, the enigmatic frontman of Nirvana, was a beacon for disenchanted youth in the early 1990s. His raw talent and authentic expression resonated deeply, but behind the curtain of fame lay a tumultuous existence. Let's delve into the intricate details of Cobain's final days, exploring the events, facts, and theories that continue to captivate and mystify. On March 1, 1994, during a tour in Munich, Germany, Cobain was diagnosed with bronchitis and severe laryngitis. The following day, he flew to Rome for treatment, where he was joined by his wife, Courtney Love, on March 3rd. In the early hours of March 4th, Love awoke to find Cobain unresponsive, having overdosed on a combination of champagne and Rohypnol. He was rushed to the hospital and remained unconscious for the rest of the day. Love later described this incident as Cobain's first attempt at unaliving himself. After 5 days, Cobain was released and returned to Seattle. Back in Seattle, on March 18th, Love contacted the police, reporting that Cobain had locked himself in a room with a gun and was depressed. Upon arrival, authorities confiscated several firearms and a bottle of pills. Cobain insisted he fine and claimed he had secluded himself to escape Love's alleged antics. Concerned for his well-being, friends and family organized an intervention on March 25th. Initially, Cobain reacted with anger, feeling cornered and misunderstood. However, by the end of the day, he agreed to undergo a detox program. On March 30th, he entered a rehabilitation facility in Los Angeles. Just a day after admission, Cobain scaled a 6-foot fence and fled the rehab center. He boarded a flight back to Seattle, sitting next to Duff McKagan of Guns N' Roses. Despite past tensions between the two bands, Cobain seemed unusually cheerful during the flight. McKagan later remarked that something felt amiss. Upon returning to Seattle, Cobain vanished. Friends and family were unaware of his whereabouts. He was spotted in various locations around the city, but his exact activities during these days remain a mystery. Some reports suggest he was seen wandering aimlessly, possibly contemplating his next move. On April 8, 1994, an electrician arrived at Cobain's Lake Washington Boulevard home to install a security system. To his horror, he discovered Cobain's lifeless body in the greenhouse above the garage. A shotgun lay across his chest, and a note was found nearby. The coroner's report estimated that Cobain had died on April 5th from a self-inflicted gunshot wound. Cobain's death was officially ruled a suicide, but numerous conspiracy theories have emerged over the years. Some believe that Cobain was murdered, possibly orchestrated by individuals close to him. These theories often point to alleged inconsistencies in the suicide note and the level of heroin found in his system, arguing that he would have been incapacitated and unable to pull the trigger. The suicide note found at the scene has been a focal point for conspiracy theorists. Some suggest that the note was not a suicide letter, but rather a message indicating Cobain's intention to leave the music industry. They argue that only the final lines, which mention his wife and daughter, imply suicide, leading to speculation that these lines were added later by someone else. The overdose in Rome is often cited as Cobain's first suicide attempt. However, some close to Cobain have disputed this characterization, suggesting it was an accidental overdose rather than a deliberate act. This incident remains a topic of debate among those who question the official narrative of his death. Before entering rehab, Cobain asked his friend, Dylan Carlson, to purchase a shotgun for him, citing security concerns. This request has been interpreted in various ways. Some see it as a sign of his deteriorating mental state, while others believe it was a precautionary measure due to perceived threats. Toxicology reports indicated that Cobain had a high concentration of heroin in his system at the time of his death. Some experts argue that such a dose would have rendered him incapable of pulling the trigger, fueling theories that his death was not self-inflicted. Over the years, various theories have emerged, ranging from allegations of foul play involving close associates to suggestions of a broader conspiracy. Documentaries like Soaked in Bleach and books such as Love and Death, The Murder of Kurt Cobain's death wasn't just the loss of a rock legend. It was the tragic end of a young man crushed under the weight of his own mind and the pressures of an unforgiving industry. His music, his pain, and his legacy remain as powerful as ever, but his story echoes a darker truth, one that stretches far beyond just him. What happened to Kurt Cobain is not an isolated incident. It's a haunting pattern in the music industry, young, vulnerable artists rising to stardom, only to be consumed by it. Behind every screaming crowd and every platinum album, there's a human being battling their own demons. Cobain's story forces us to ask the difficult question: how many more artists have to suffer before the industry changes? At first glance, fame seems like the ultimate goal: money, recognition, adoration. But for artists like Kurt Cobain, fame was not a gift, it was a curse. He never wanted to be the spokesperson for a generation, yet millions looked to him for answers. The grunge movement was built on raw emotion, disillusionment, and rebellion, and Cobain embodied that. But when the world puts you on a pedestal, it also expects you to never fall. The music industry is relentless. Artists are pushed to perform, produce, and stay relevant. There's no room for breaks, no time for healing. Cobain wasn't just struggling with drug addiction and depression. He was fighting a system that demanded more and more from him, without ever asking, "Are you okay?" The industry has a long history of exploiting artists at their lowest points. Amy Winehouse, another talent who lost her battle with addiction, was ridiculed by the media instead of helped. Chester Bennington of Linkin Park, Chris Cornell of Soundgarden, both powerful voices, both lost to suicide. The parallels to Cobain are chilling. Before his death, there were clear warning signs. His Rome overdose, his erratic behavior, his escape from rehab, these were all desperate cries for help. And yet, those cries went unanswered. Many people around Cobain were concerned, but concern doesn't always translate to action. Some speculate that the people closest to him didn't do enough to intervene. Could he have been saved? Was he surrounded by people who truly wanted the best for him, or by those who benefited from his fame? These questions linger, and while we may never have concrete answers, they serve as a painful reminder of how mental health struggles often go unnoticed or ignored until it's too late. Cobain's death has been surrounded by conspiracy theories for decades. Some believe he was murdered. Private investigator Tom Grant, hired by Courtney Love to find Cobain before his body was discovered, has publicly questioned the official story. The handwriting in the note has been analyzed and debated, with some believing the final lines were forged. And then there's the drug dosage. Was he physically capable of pulling the trigger after taking such a high amount? While the evidence still overwhelmingly supports he unalived himself, the skepticism reflects something deeper. People don't want to believe their heroes could give up. We see our favorite musicians as larger than life, but in reality, they are just people. People who struggle, people who suffer, people who sometimes don't make it out alive. Cobain's death is not just a cautionary tale about fame. It's a wake-up call about how we treat mental health, especially in the entertainment industry. Artists are expected to pour their emotions into their music, to bleed for their art, but when they start drowning in their own pain, the world often looks the other way. We idolize musicians, but we rarely give them the space to be human. The stigma surrounding depression and addiction remains, even after so many high-profile tragedies. The industry has made some progress, mental health awareness is growing, and some artists today are more open about their struggles. But is it enough? How many more voices will be lost before true change happens? Despite his tragic end, Kurt Cobain's impact is undeniable. His music, his words, and his raw honesty continue to inspire millions. Nirvana's legacy remains strong, and Cobain's story serves as both an inspiration and a warning. For fans, his music is a form of catharsis, a way to feel understood in a world that often doesn't make sense. But beyond the music, his life reminds us of something crucial. Fame does not heal wounds. Money, success, adoration, none of it can replace mental health and genuine support. Kurt Cobain's death left a void in the world of music, but it also left us with a lesson: we need to do better. For the artists we admire, for the friends we care about, for ourselves. The question now is, will we listen?